Hey guys, it's Holly here and welcome back to my channel. If you're a new subscriber, thank you for... Hey guys, it's Holly here. Welcome back to my channel. If you're a new subscriber, thank you for joining me. And today we're going to be talking about all things 1 rep max, why it's important, who it might be useful for, and how to perform this movement correctly. Whether or not you are a beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced lifter, having an idea of your 1 rep max is really beneficial. It helps you better program for your higher rep ranges so that you know you're actually lifting a sufficient amount of weight to actually help you make progress in the gym. Now, this is something that I did terribly when I first started lifting. I would come into the gym, I would just throw some random weights on the bar, I'd squat it for reps, and I didn't really have any idea whether it was actually an effective amount of weight to lift. So it wasn't until I actually started testing my strength and starting to hit some lower rep ranges that I realized, you know, maybe I'm not actually lifting enough or anywhere near what I'm actually capable of. So if you haven't perfected the art of squatting to depth and really feeling comfortable with those big lifts and your compound movements, then I would not advise you to test your 1 rep max. However, if you have been lifting for more than 12 months and you are feeling like your technique is good, then this video is definitely going to help you set up and maximally execute a really good, solid lift. All right, so let's start with the warm up. Once you get into the gym, I usually do like a 5 to 10 minute quick brisk walk just to kind of get the blood flowing. And then it's all about getting mobile. So the first couple of exercises that I'm going to show you today will help you kind of get into a better position to really correctly execute your squat. A lot of the exercises that I do are primarily focused around getting the hips loose and open, so I can really get down and deep into the squat and sink into the squat well. So the first stretch that I'm going to show you is a pigeon stretch. So I'm going to have Lane demonstrate this pigeon stretch. This is all about the hip flexor and opening up and getting nice and mobile through your hips. So you can see here, he's sitting up nice and tall, long spine. What you can do is you can kind of move and shift your weight around a little bit. One coming over the front of the foot here. It's going to hold that for about 5 to 10 seconds. Breathing, bracing, keeping the core nice and tight. Then he's going to shift his weight and he's going to come over to the other side. So he's going to direct his chest towards his knee. Okay, so that's just going to help really lengthen out and stretch that hip flexor. Again, holding for somewhere between 5 and 10 seconds. Now, a lot of the exercises that I do are going to be more dynamic in nature. You don't want to do too much static stretching like this because it has been shown to negatively impact your overall strength. So today, most of the stretches are going to be dynamic in nature. So the main reason we don't want to do too much static stretching, and specifically when I say static stretching, it's for 60 seconds or more. That is because when we're static stretching, you're lengthening and elongating the muscle, and what happens is you start to lose that elasticity and that contractile movement. When you're squatting, you want to be able to pop and spring up nice and fast. Okay, so the second exercise or mobility exercise that I like to do is the world's greatest stretch. Lane does this one all the time. You've probably seen him on his channel doing this. I do it all the time as well. It's just great for helping to open up, release the thoracic, the spine. You're getting a lot of spinal rotation. You're also getting a nice stretch through your hamstring and of course your hip flexors to get you nice and loose and mobile, ready to squat. So Lane, let's give us an example of the world's greatest stretch. So you can see here, Lane is kind of pushing his hip out a little bit, and that's going to really create that length, a nice long stretch. He's also going to focus on trying to make sure his back leg, so the leg is extended out the back, is straight. You want to lock that out to really maximize that hip flexor stretch. You don't want to bend the back knee, you want to keep it as straight as possible for a maximal stretch. So you can also see when he turns around and rotates, he's getting a nice amount of rotation through his spine, opening up the chest and really getting nice and limber. So for this exercise, I would recommend performing 2 sets of 5 to 10 reps per side. And again, that's going to depend on how mobile you are, how you're feeling on the day. Sometimes I might do a little bit extra if I'm feeling like I'm a little tight through the hips. So again, listen to your body, listen to your cues. And if you need to do a few more, then that's okay too. So the next warm-up is the bird dogs. Dr. Stuart McGill is kind of renowned for this particular exercise. They're a great core activator, something that I really enjoy, and it's definitely made me think more about how much I engage my abdominals when I'm actually squatting. And that's something that I never used to do, and one of the reasons why I used to develop a lot of lower back soreness, I just wasn't using my core to support the lift. So I'm going to have Lane demonstrate the bird dog. We're going to show you two versions, a beginner and then an advanced version, depending on how strong your core is. So he's going to start off in all fours. Right here you can see he's going to take his front arm and opposite leg, and he's going to extend out behind him. So he's going to sweep the floor. So when he does this, he's trying to get as straight as possible. He's going to hold that for somewhere between 5 to 10 seconds per side, whilst engaging through his core, squeezing his glute, and trying to get as long as possible. What you don't want to do is hyperextend and end up having too much arch in your back, or your leg dropping down or coming up too high. You're trying to be nice and flat, keep it straight, and really keep nice and tight through that body. So for an exercise like this, I would usually do, again, 2 sets of 5 per side, holding for somewhere between 5 to 10 seconds. And this really gets me thinking about my abs, thinking about my core, and ready to kind of brace when I actually execute the squat. For a more advanced athlete, if you've already mastered the bird dog and you can do this quite easily, like anything, you need to progressively overload and make the exercise more difficult. So this time, Lane's going to do the same thing, except he's going to take his arm and leg and take it out on the 45 degree and continue to brace and hold. So Lane, let's show that example. Good, so you can see how his arm is now coming out on that 45 and his leg is out on the 45, and then he's going to bring it back in whilst keeping engaged through the core. He's not relaxing, he's keeping it tight. I can see that muscle is active. And he's also going to be practicing his breathing while bracing. A lot of the time people will try and hold their breath through this movement. That's not what you want to do. You want to be trying to brace, but breathe through the movement. So imagine if you're standing there, someone's punching you in the stomach. I'm bracing right now, but I'm still breathing, I'm still talking. So that's the kind of position that you want to get into while you're doing this bird dog. All right, so you'll notice Lane's puffing a lot. If you aren't puffing after that type of warm-up, then you're probably not bracing effectively. Like, he's got to sweat up. In fairness, Lane did just do a full squat workout this morning. And that's one of the reasons why for the next 2 exercises I'm going to show you, all warm-ups, he's not going to demonstrate. And I'm going to actually show you the next 2, because also I'm very flexible, a lot more flexible than Lane. And that might be the same for you guys too. So the next 2 exercises are for those of you that are a little bit more mobile, and you'll probably see me get into a much greater stretch than someone like Lane could, who is not quite as flexible through his hamstrings and through the hip area. So this next exercise is really great if you're trying to get rid of a hip impingement. Basically, so our hip kind of sits in a ball and socket, right? So this one is going to help kind of open it up and kind of get things moving around really seamlessly and fluently. A lot of the time people will confuse hip impingement with like a hip strain, and there is an easy way to identify those. I won't talk about it today, but this particular movement is excellent for helping to kind of, again, open up the hips and enable you to get into a full deep squat. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring my feet in together. I'm very flexible, so you may not get anywhere near close to this, but basically I'm trying to get my heels as close as I can to my butt whilst keeping a nice long spine. And then I'm just going to take my hands and I'm going to gently press down. So again, this is really helping to open up that hip socket. And I can feel a really good stretch. So I'll do one on one side here, and I'll do this for somewhere between 5 and 10 seconds. And then I'm going to swap and transition, and I'll do the other side. So then gently pushing down. I'm trying to get my knees to the floor. So I'll kind of go back and forth 5 times on each side, and by the end I should really be able to kind of get both of my knees pretty close and flat to the ground. So once I'm there and I've done a few reps, what I'll then do is start to try and move my hips. So you can see here I'm kind of tilting my hips forwards, so into an anterior tilt position, and then I'm going to bring them back under to a posterior tilt position. You can imagine a bucket. You've got anterior tilt would be tipping forwards, and then posterior tilt would be tipping the bucket backwards. So I'm kind of turning my hips. So that's anterior, I just felt it pop. And then I'm going to rotate back under. So all the while I'm keeping a good amount of pressure and tension on my legs here. My hip flexors feel great right now. So that's the second exercise. So I'm not actually sure exactly whether this has a specific name. If I had to guess, I'm going to say it was a windmill. But again, this is another fantastic exercise, particularly if you are somebody that's a little bit more flexible and mobile, just to open up that hip joint. So you can notice that I take my leg and extend it up nice and tall or as straight as I possibly can. I'm trying to make sure I maintain my hips at a nice high position. I'm not letting my butt drop down, so I'll keep my hips nice and high, and then you'll see me slowly lower my legs or my leg down to one side. And I'll just pause and hold there for maybe 5-10 seconds, just to really let that muscle lengthen out and stretch, and then I'll repeat that for 5 reps on each leg. So the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is your lifting equipment and your accessories. And it's something that I never used when I first started lifting, and I wondered why I couldn't squat for shit, just being real. The first thing, and I'll start from the bottom up, is your footwear. Do not try and squat a 1 rep max in a regular tennis shoe or running shoe. Those shoes have a nice 1-inch fluffy marshmallow heel, which are wonderful for running. They are designed to help absorb the shock when your foot strikes the ground, your heel strikes the ground first, and it takes some of that impact. When you're squatting, you want to be as stable as possible, so a flat sole is crucial. So I've always squat in regular Converse. Lane's shoes that you may have seen when he was demonstrating have a 0.6 inch of a heel, and they are a specific squatting shoe. So I'll list some of the links in the description below for you to go and check out if you're interested in getting some squat shoes. But at the end of the day, I just love a Converse. It's nice and flat and sturdy, and it does me just fine for even my powerlifting meets. The next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is knee sleeves. So they look a little bit intimidating. They're kind of scary if you haven't used them before. But if you've felt at any point in time unsafe or unsettled at the bottom end of a squat, particularly if you're getting to depth, then these can really be of great assistance. So they keep your knee feeling protected, you feel safe, you feel stable. They'll add a little bit to your total lift, but they're legal in powerlifting sports. There are certain types of these knee sleeves that are kind of sanctioned, and they are tested to make sure that they're not doing too much. But I've always used Iron Tanks. They're my sponsor. All of my equipment is from Iron Tanks. And I wear a medium in these knee sleeves. And if you're a little bit smaller, I recommend getting this small, but these do great for all of my training. And then on a meet day, I'll try and squeeze into a small, just so I've got a little bit of extra support for those heavy loads. So knee sleeves are great. The next thing is the Iron Tanks lever belt. So my particular belt is called the Hellraiser. Yes, it raises you up from hell. It's great. I love it. The reason I like the lever belt is it's quick release. So you might have seen some of the belts that have a prong. They're okay, but I can tell you now, when you're lifting a 1 rep max and you have your belt on nice and tight, it should be firm. The last thing you want to try and do is fumble around and get the damn thing off when you can't breathe. So the lever belt is super effective for a quick release, and it's just really compact and stable. So I love this. If you've never used a lifting belt before, you might like to start with a slightly thinner belt, but definitely a leather belt. Don't worry about these material ones. They're not going to support you for what you need. So my particular belt, I believe this is a 13 mil thickness, and it's leather. I used to get bruising when I first started to wear it, just around my rib, because it's firm, but you kind of get used to it. And now I would never want to lift without it, because I just feel really safe and comfortable. The next thing, wrist wraps. I used to squat high bar, and then when I moved to a low bar squat, your barbell is sitting much lower on your back. And I was like, my wrists feel quite funny, because there is a little bit more flexion in your wrist. So the purpose of wearing the wrist wraps or wrist straps is to kind of really lock and fasten your wrist in position, so you have minimal movement. You want it to be fixed, so that when that load is sitting on your back, there's less tension kind of being exerted on your wrist, so it's protecting your joints. These ones are 24-inch length. So these are quite long, but they're very malleable. They're very flexible, they're very stretchy, they've got a good amount of elasticity. I like these for training, but when I'm competing, I'll get a more rigid style of wrist strap or wrist wrap that is less flexy, less stretchy, and they're not very comfortable. But again, when you're lifting your best and your heaviest, I want a little bit more support on a powerlifting meet day. But these ones are great. Again, I always use iron tanks for all of our accessories. So again, the links will be in the description if you're wanting to get some. And then lastly, colors. Safety, safety, safety. So I just grabbed these online on Amazon. It's just a regular barbell lifting collar. It just helps the weights stay on the bar and from sliding around. So the last thing you want to have happen is if you accidentally bomb out. I mean, I've absolutely failed many attempts, in training before. I always have my catch bars set up, which is absolutely crucial. But this has saved me, otherwise the bar slides off. You've got, the weights will slide off, and then you've got an uneven weight, and it's just a little dangerous. So this kind of keeps you safe and keeps those weights firmly on the bar. So you can pick these up online for like $15. So I carry these with me too. All right, so one of the questions I'm asked a lot is how do I forecast or how do I predict what my 1 rep max attempt might even be? So here's a little helpful tip. Now, if you know what your 8 rep max is, or if you have performed 8 reps of a particular lift before, then you can kind of predict what you might be able to do for a 1 rep max. So let me use an example. For me, I can usually do around 225 pounds for 8 reps pretty comfortably. So that is going to be about 80% of your 1 rep max. So for me, if I take 225, I divide it by 0.8, that gives me an approximate 1 rep max attempt at 281 pounds. So you can go ahead and work out what your 1 rep max estimate might be based on your 8 rep max. Everybody has their own style of warm-up, but I'm going to tell you what I like to do. I think it's also important to make note that whenever you warm up, you are consistent and you do the same thing every single time. And make sure that you treat every single rep like it's your 1 rep max. So don't get in there and have shitty technique. Practice your bracing, practice your breathing. Walk that bar out like you've got your 1 rep max attempt on the bar. So you want to be strong and getting your mind in the right frame to actually execute your best effort. So if you treat lightweight like it's heavy, then one day you'll treat heavyweight like it's lightweight. So for my warm-up, I like to do about 5 warm-up sets before I actually get to my final attempt. To begin with, I'll do 5 reps, and this will be at about 50% of my forecast 1 rep max. Then I'll take a few breathers. If I feel I need to do any more mobility work, I'll go and do a few more of those. Then I'll come back and I'll do a 4 rep set. So that's going to be at about 60% of my 1 rep max effort. Again, I'll take a few minutes to recover. If I need to do any more stretching, any more dynamic movements, I'll do that. Then I come back and I hit my 3. Now your 3 is going to be at 70% of your 1 rep max. Then I'll do a 2 at 80% and a 1 at 90% of my 1 rep max, and then I am warm. So that's probably going to take me at least 25 minutes to go through all of those exercises, all of those stretches, and then do my warm-up attempts in preparation for my 1 rep max. So for anybody who has come to me and said, hey, I did my 1 rep max in 20 minutes, should I do some more volume? You're crazy. You didn't work hard enough. That is my strategy for setting up for a 1 rep max effort, how to warm up, how to get mobile, the equipment that you need, and how to correctly execute your best effort at a 1 rep max. So guys, I hope that you've enjoyed watching this video and that you've taken something away, particularly if you're interested in learning what your maximum strength is. Now, if you're interested in getting some coaching and you would like to get some training programming done for you, I would absolutely recommend going and checking out the BioLane Workout Builder. There are some 30 plus evidence-based training programs that are suitable for beginners through to advanced lifters. There's strength training programs, there's hypertrophy programs, there's a whole bunch of stuff on there. There's something for everybody. The other thing is if you are wanting some more tailored approach to coaching, then why not hit up one of our BioLane team coaches. So you can check out the BioLane website by visiting www.biolane.com/coaching. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you guys have an awesome weekend.